So guys, if you can, please subscribe to the channel and please smash the like button on this video. So guys, in this next news story, police uncovered the UK's biggest ever prison drug smuggling conspiracy after catching a mental health nurse taking £1 million of illicit substances inside. Amy Hatfield, who's 37, admitted she had some stuff on her when she was arrested at the start of her shift at HMP Lindholme in Doncaster following a tip-off in October 2019. When officers searched her, they found cannabis, tobacco, anabolic steroids, liquid, MDMA, phones and chargers. She also had several bottles of Ribena containing liquid spice. Detective Sergeant Gareth Gent of South Yorkshire Police's Prison Anti-Corruption Unit said the prison value of the liquid spice recovered from Hatfield that morning was estimated by prison experts to be worth around £1 million. The quantity of drugs found on one person going into the prison was undoubtedly shocking and set alarm bells ringing that this was part of something much bigger. Hatfield had also smuggled lock knives into the prison. Examination of Hatfield's phones, movements and banking activity found a number of co-conspirators. They were arrested and charged with offences linked to the smuggling of substances and phones into prison for large sums of cash. It was a 19-week trial at Sheffield Crown Court which concluded this week and the conviction of at least 16 people for their roles in the conspiracy. There was a Paul Whittingham. He's 58 years old from Bradford. He was found guilty of money laundering. Detective Sergeant Gent said, as a result of our tireless determination to uncover this criminal network, we have disrupted and dismantled an incredibly dangerous drugs operation that posed a significant risk to the prison population, its staff and the wider community. Hatfield pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and Class B drugs and conspiracy to smuggle knives and phones into prison, as well as money laundering. Others involved in the conspiracy included Joseph Whittingham, Jordan Needham, Courtney Ward, Deborah Stoddard, Anthony Campbell, Cora Haley, Lee Holmes, Leighton Kemp, Audrey Needham, Lucy Whittingham, William Francis, Anzie Williamson, Natalie Williamson and Lydia Pennington, and these are all going to be sentenced at a later date. In a news story coming from Southend ways, two men held a man hostage, repeatedly stabbed him and attempted to cut off his ear in a horrific attack inside a home. Wayne Kavanagh, who's 31 of Shoebury, and Thomas Sitek, who's 27 of Lee, was sentenced at Southend Crown Court yesterday for their roles in a brutal attack in Candown. The court heard how the pair tied up the victim for an hour after he was stabbed and beaten and they attempted to cut off his ear. The attackers recorded the incident and the footage was played during the sentencing hearing alongside body-worn video from police arriving at the scene. The prosecutor, Peter Walsh, told the court Mr. Kavanagh was staying with a woman and she came home from work on January the 21st to find him with two other men. It seemed they had been boxing with equipment in the lounge. Both had been drinking and taking cocaine. Kavanagh started to hit the victim and became out of control. They kept attacking him and the woman runs away and is dragged back to the room. Kavanagh suggests they stabbed the man and comes back with a 12-inch knife and stabbed him repeatedly. The prosecutor states that they then told the woman that she is involved and the two men tied up his hands and feet. Kavanagh and the victim passed out and the woman was able to call the police. The victim suffered a bleed on the brain, various wounds and a permanent injury to his ear. In defence of Kavanagh, his solicitor told the court he suffered greatly as a child and spent time in a secure hospital. He said Kavanagh knows he can be a nasty piece of work while taking drinks and drugs. And the defence for Sitek said he had ambitions to be a chef in the Navy, but that's a dream that will never be realised. He's had self-harm incidents and suicidal thoughts in the past too. He took a subordinate role in the incident. So both men admitted wounding with intent and false imprisonment, and Kavanagh also admitted assault. Kavanagh was sentenced to 14 years and 8 months in prison, and Sitek was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Absolute madness. There's some crazy people out there, let me tell you that, guys. And in another drug-related news story, a gang who flooded Wales with cocaine from Merseyside had been jailed. Paul Price, the boss of the drug operation, facilitated the supply of high-purity coke from Merseyside to North Wales. He enlisted the help of Ryan Hope, who worked alongside Price and operated in an organisational role. Hope's partner Kaylee facilitated communication between the 38-year-old and her mate Rebecca. The court heard Kaylee was instrumental in recruiting Rebecca as a courier with promises of easy money and drugs. For her role, she was sentenced to a 2-year suspended sentence. Rebecca was a courier for the drugs gang between November 2020 and December 2021. She was recruited by Hope through his partner Crumpton, collecting cocaine from Hope in Liverpool and taking it directly to property in North Wales under the supervision of Alan Williams. The 27-year-old would then return to Liverpool with cash. She was also handed a 2-year suspended sentence. Williams, another drug dealer, operated out of a house in Uril and was remanded in custody to be sentenced at a later date. Both Price, who's 55, and Hope were jailed for 11 years and 4 months. Philip Thomas Owens was also a sub-dealer operating out of Uril, and his address was used to receive commodities of drugs following the closure of another property. Owen was jailed for 5 years in prison for his role. There was a Malcolm Griffiths. He was another sub-dealer within the conspiracy, and he bought cocaine in bulk frequently throughout the duration of the drug operation and had a debt to Paul Price of £39,200. Griffiths was jailed for 5 years. And there was another drug dealer, Farrell Anthony Denton. He was jailed for 3.5 years for his role, and Robert Thomas was a trusted associate and the driver to Paul Price, and he was also jailed for 3.5 years. Speaking after sentencing, Detective Inspector Richard Sidney of the Force's Serious and Organised Crime Unit said, "This was a sophisticated and well-developed enterprise of criminal activity designed to flood the streets of Rhyl and beyond with Class A drugs, and today's sentences demonstrate the severity of the crimes being committed. This is a clear message to those that partake in the supply of drugs that you're not welcome to North Wales." And the local inspector Kevin Williams said, "I welcome today's outcome as it reflects the impact of organised crime groups on our local community. We will continue to disrupt and dismantle county lines and any other activities that threaten, harm and cause misery to our residents." News story coming from Northumbria ways. 2 men have been given prison sentences after a sustained attack on a man which left him with serious injuries. Carlo Giacomini and Aidan Inskip have been sentenced to a collective total of 7 years in prison for assaulting a man in December last year. Giacomini, who's 42, and Inskip, who's 54, drove to an address in North Shields at midday on December the 19th, with Giacomini armed with a baseball bat. On arrival, the pair, along with a third man, exited the vehicle and began their attack, which lasted almost 5 minutes. The 41-year-old victim suffered extensive injuries, including a broken nose and a broken vertebrae in his back. Officers obtained CCTV from the scene, and Giacomini and Inskip were immediately identified as suspects and were arrested the same day. The pair were charged with wounding with intent to commit GBH. Giacomini was also charged with possession of an offensive weapon. On the 18th of January, Giacomini and Inskip attended Newcastle Crown Court, where they both pleaded guilty to the offences, and just the other day, they were sentenced to 3.5 years in prison each for the assault. Detective Constable Philip Nelson, who led the investigation, praised the verdict, said the brazenness of this pair cannot be overstated. They drove to a busy area armed in one of their own vehicles in the middle of the day and attacked a man in front of members of the public. The pair also made no attempt to conceal their identities, which sent a clear message that they believed they were above the law. They even carried out the assault while wearing clothing which was branded with their place of work. Thanks to the fast actions of officers involved, the pair were able to be identified and very quickly arrested, and thanks to the CCTV, which was swiftly obtained, they were left with little option but to admit their offences. We hope the sentences act as some closure for the victim, who sustained horrific injuries because of this callous attack. The bravery he has shown put through this whole investigation has resulted in 2 dangerous offenders being put behind bars and undoubtedly helped protect the wider community. Our message is clear. Violence is never the answer, and we will continue doing everything we can to bring offenders to justice and place them before the courts of law. So guys, these are a few stories coming from the streets of the UK. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.